Hi everyone. Bit of a different start today. Massive welcome. My name's Simon Instead. I'm the founder of the InfoSec Live community, and a very big welcome to what is the third episode now here on InfoSec Live of the vendor experience. Previously with Jaye Tillson and John Spiegel, but also joined today by Dan Parelskin, where they're going to discuss why they joined Axis and how their platform can help your organization heighten security whilst helping you work in harmony. Also followed by a high-level demo and a Q&A session at the end. So, gents, good afternoon, good evening, good morning.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Shall we start off by, I know you've had a bit of a sore throat, Dan, but I'm going to put you on the spot here because you haven't been on this show with Jaye and John in the past. Do you mind just giving our audience a bit of background about yourself before we kick off?
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
I've had a lucky career, I think. I ended up at McAfee a little over 10 years ago and got to work with a lot of their government healthcare education customers. And that led to me running that part of the business for Tanium after, and then going over to HackerOne, where I led the Hack the Pentagon effort along with a great team. We went after tailored access operations, simulation for Air Force, Army, and others. And then Mike Fay reached out to me. Mike Fay is a board member at Axis and told me about a little startup that was going to disrupt the zero trust space. And I'd been hearing about that for about 10 years. And I thought it was an amazing idea, but it wasn't very approachable for most large enterprises, and saw a simple solution that could get quick wins for third-party access in particular, which was super risky. And that was something I was seeing leading to a lot of the breach events and a lot of the vulnerabilities we were identifying at HackerOne. And it was just an awesome opportunity to go out and try and finally figure out how to create a defense that scaled. And that got me excited. And that's what led to me coming in as employee 16 before we even had paying customers. So,
and how many employees are you up to now, Dan?
We're now over 116, and we're about to be a part of a much bigger company, which is exciting.
Well, I suppose I should really kick off by giving you all a massive congratulations on the acquisition by HPE. I mean, give Dan's voice a rest for a second there. I'll come to you, Jaye. What's your response to the announcement?
I mean, I think it's massively exciting, if I'm honest. I mean, we've got a phenomenal SSE platform. And I mean, I know I'm biased. I know I work at Axis, but I did a lot of due diligence before I came over to work at Axis. I looked at all the other players in the market. I was interviewed by Dan, and I think in reverse, I interviewed Dan as well. So he's one of the main reasons I'm here. But I think that SSE platform that we have, combined with what HP have in regards to at least their SD-WAN and all the other stuff they have, is incredible. I mean, I know John's talked a lot before about kind of that unicorn single vendor. I think we have an absolute immense chance right here to build that unicorn. And we might all think they don't exist, but certainly I'm very passionate and excited about what the future holds.
Well, let's put it this way. They might not exist at the moment, but with the amount of companies there are in the cybersecurity space, there's only one successful route forward, I think, which is, dare I say it, the bigger vendors coming along, bringing the talent from the smaller ones and creating something special. I'm sure I'll be hated by lots of people for saying that, but it's pretty much the truth of it. What are we up to, nearly 4,000 products in this space now, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, it's only going to grow. I mean, Dan, I don't know if you want to add any more eloquent words to what I've just said in regards to the acquisition, or John.
I think it's really exciting, and then I'll pass it over to John. I think there's, two things. One is, when I first started here, customers were very excited about what we were doing, allowing third parties very secure access into the enterprise without having to use clunky old VDI solutions and putting them on the VPNs and shipping them laptops. That was powerful, but almost every C-level we talked to, whether it was a CIO or a CISO, is going, how does this fit into that SASE strategy Gartner's tell me about, that Forrester's tell me about? I need this big picture thing where I'm going to move all this stuff to the cloud. And you're talking about this really risky subset, and that's important, but how do I get there? And that's, for more than 3 years that I've been here, been the big question that we're now, we've developed as far as we could in-house. We're now going to be able to put that all together with the SD-WAN solutions of Aruba and HPE and take it to that next level and really address that big transformational opportunity that they've all been asking us about. And John, you played the other side. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Dan, you nailed it on the head. I mean, as we discussed in episode 2, this is part of a 10-year arc of the evolution of network security. The last 10 years was about software-defined networking, cloud, SaaS, those types of things. Now we're moving into how to secure that. and that's where SASE comes into play. Axis plays one component of that SASE framework, and that's the SSE stack. And now being acquired by HPE Aruba, we now have that other piece, which is the network piece, the SD-WAN section, if you want to call it that. Those now come together, and I'm very bullish on where this is going to go.
Thanks, John. Thank you all for your comments on that. One thing I was going to ask Dan to start with was why you joined Axis. But if I'm honest, I think you pretty much nailed that in your opening statement. Unless there's anything else you want to add to that, I'm going to come and speak to Jaye and ask them, Jaye and John, the same question. Is there any comments you want to add to your intro statement as to why? I think you made it.
No, I think there's what I mentioned. Plus, to me, when you go into something like this, there's always an opportunity for innovation. And I think what we heard, and I talked to a lot of customers of the incumbents in the space, was that the solutions were either too clunky, didn't cover all the use cases they needed, didn't have coverage for a third party where you couldn't run software on their device. There's so many gaps. I really joined because I saw two innovative founders that had built software in the past. And I think building software in 2020 at the time, now it's 2023, that's a skill set that is very hard to have at a very big company. I think you can, sort of farm software, but to, go out there and hunt new ideas and be really innovative and do the R of R&D, which is the research part of it. I saw when a customer needed us to pivot from giving private SSH access to giving Git access, one of our R&D guys figured that out in a day and had a working POC. Those are the type of things that you can do at startups that create innovation that a bigger company can eventually take to market. Our big opportunity now is, of course, we didn't have the whole go-to-market function. We were competing with 10 sellers against 1,000 sellers at most of our competitors. Now we get to go take this amazing technology we built with customers kind of in an incubator and go put it out and scale the go-to-market function. But yeah, to me, it was the innovation I saw in meeting really smart people that could, our founders, Dor Knafo, Gil Azrilant and Shuki Chen, that could take it to the next level and go address the gaps that we were hearing from United Airlines, Marriott Vacations, GlaxoSmithKline, a lot of the people that informed our early ideas. So I'll pass it over to the guys to add in, but that was what got me there for sure.
Thank you. I was going to make a flippant comment to Jaye and say, is that why they brought you on, to lower down the intelligence level? Sorry, mate. In all seriousness, why did you join Axis, Jaye? What was it that drove you to join them without my pedantic, flippant comments?
I think for me, it was just a journey I was already on without really realizing it. So I implemented Zscaler back at my last company. I was a massive advocate of Zscaler. I thought it was a great product. It was very innovative. Anyway, that word that I can never say. And the reason I implemented that is because I didn't like the way we'd historically done things. I didn't think it worked anymore. And I was kind of going down the route of zero trust without realizing it was zero trust. And I was implementing kind of user to application access. I didn't like the concept of insider threat, and I was worried that that was growing. I didn't like the fact that people could go anywhere on the network. So we went out, we bought Zscaler. When it was coming up for renewal, I reached out to a number of my old kind of friends within Zscaler. There were some things that they had wrong, or I felt that they had wrong, and they couldn't meet our needs. I reached out to Christopher Hines, who I used to work a lot with and do stuff with, and only to find out that he was no longer at Zscaler. He was at this company called Access that, to be blunt about it, I'd never heard of. We started talking about why he'd left Zscaler, because obviously he was pivotal to their ZTNA kind of setup there. And then I kind of reached out a little bit more, and that reaching out in those conversations about potentially buying the product kind of turned into more conversations about coming on board. And I'm like, I really like the idea of this. I spoke to Dan, I spoke to some other people. They were hugely passionate about what they were doing, very like-minded folks. Spoke to the R&D team in Israel, and they were changing the world. They were passionate about it. They were doing things in days that Zscaler would have taken months or years to do, or wouldn't have actually done. And I was just simply amazed at what they were doing. But I also think more on a bit of a personal note. For me, that mix between security and kind of efficiency in a business always made me nervous for the user side of things. I didn't want users to be called back into an office because the team couldn't secure them. And I know I've spoke with you privately about this, but I want people to have flexibility, but they need to be securely doing that. They need to be able to access applications in a very secure way. And I know it sounds really odd, but I was very nervous that the world would say, well, we can't secure the users at home any longer. The pandemic's going away, so we'll bring everyone back in. I wanted to work at a company.
You didn't want to go back to work, is what you're telling me.
Pretty much, yeah. No, I wanted to work for a company that enabled people to have a better work-life balance, to have that flexibility, to be able to continue walking their dog if they needed to in the day, or dealing with their children, or dealing with all that stuff we can't do when we're 9 to 5 in an office. And the only way I felt we could do that would be to secure them in the correct way. And that's really what ZTNA and Zero Trust is all about. And I mean, at the core of Access is that philosophy. So add that philosophy with the absolute passion and the greatness in the people. I couldn't not come here. I spent 6 months trying to decide, should I come? And it was like, what's stopping me doing it? I just need to make a change.
I think the most powerful part of that for me was the fact that you'd bought into what they did before you even considered joining them, and which ended up driving the main factor for you joining them, probably, Jay.
I mean, to be honest, I was doing kind of consultancy type, working with Dan, doing stuff, getting really in depth in the product way before they really even offered me a job. I mean, it was on the cards. Me and Dan had talked about it. I reckon I talked with about 25 people within the company. And I don't know whether they were necessarily interviewing me, but I was certainly interviewing them. I wanted to know every single part. I wanted to speak to R&D, the marketing team, the sales team, the solutions architects. I wanted to make sure that if I was giving up 25 years of my corporate life with a chance of being the next CIO, it needed to be for the right product, the right people, the right passion, all of those things. And I know that everybody says that, but actually for me, that's 100% true. It was all of those factors. And even my girlfriend said to me one day, you just need to leave. You've talked about this for 5 months now. Make a decision. And Dan will know that once I'd made a decision, it was full steam ahead.
But it was back to your post yesterday, wasn't it? You asked John and I and everyone else, passion or what was it? Passion or planning. Passion or planning. I mean, there's got to be an element of both in life. I mean, I think we'll all admit that. But without the passion, it makes it very difficult. And I've met you a few times in person now, Jay, and to say that you have definitely got passion about what you're doing at this firm. So, yeah. John, over to you. Why did you join Axis? Don't just say same reasons as Jay.
I was almost going to. Jay pulled in a lot of the themes and reasons why I made the transition. My perspective comes from a different area. I was early in on SD-WAN, met with a lot of the founders that came out of Cisco, interviewed a lot of the companies, and the use case I had was very different than what Jay was. We were a retailer, and we had numerous stores all across the globe that needed to be interconnected. In the past, that was expensive. It was hard to do. The bandwidth was limited. And when SD-WAN came around, I was all on board to the point where I was probably one of those pioneers trying to find a path forward. And it was a great journey, and got an opportunity to work with some of the major companies, some of them that got acquired. Palo Alto acquired CloudGenix, which I was an early customer on, and did some advisory work with them. But the challenge I had was security. How do you insert security into SD-WAN? And that was a question I didn't have answered, when I decided to make that transition. And interestingly enough, out of the blue, Dan gave me a call, explained, what Axis was trying to do, the philosophy behind it. I interviewed the founders, and what they said was, hey, we want to create something new. We want to use, cloud-based application development. We want to be agile. We want to grow fast. But they also had this theme of operational simplicity. And that really, that was a thing that I just was so passionate about. We talked about passionate and planning. Operational simplicity was a constant theme when I was talking to those SD-WAN startups back in the day. And when we had conversations around, I think I asked Gil, I said, hey, Gil, what's your favorite technology? And outside of the New York subway system, he said, Apple. I want to create a product that's like Apple, where you can go from, your iPhone to your iPad to your Mac AirBook, and use the same headphones, use the same ecosystem, and just make it seamless, make it almost a magical experience. And when we talked about that, and the impact that has on the customer, the complexity in the industry, how hard it is to bring in security into SD-WAN, that sold me. And that's when I decided to make the leap.
Thanks, John. And I would say the acquisition leads in very nicely to that, doesn't it? The kind of the Apple analogy. I mean, I'm sitting here with a MacBook Pro, an iPhone, an iPad, and AirPods, so I'm completely with you on that. And the one thing I've seen, not being an expert in the industry, is how fractured everything seems to be, and how many different places and people have to deal with to try and get a robust policy in place and procedures in place. Dan, it sounds like you're instrumental in all the recruitment within the organization, or was it just these two?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, to be fair, Dan played a pivotal part. I mean, when he does the demo, you'll see exactly why I came on board. He did this demo to me. It opened my eyes. I mean, I've sat through, and no doubt John sat through as a customer, thousands of demos. And some of them you're just saying the same stuff. And does it actually meet the business need? Is it what I want? Dan gave me a demo, and actually the product was way younger than it is today. I mean, it was a much different product a year ago, significantly so. I mean, the amount of work that's been done on it. We ask customers questions. We ask what they want. We make sure that it's viable, and then it gets built. And I mean, I've been on calls where a customer's asked for a box to be moved around on the platform, and they'll do it on the call. I mean, you will never find that anywhere else. And it's that simplicity. It's all about ease of use. I mean, that's what Apple's all about for me. I mean, I never had an iPhone until 5 or 6 years ago, and I thought I would hate it. And within a day, it just made sense. Everything was in the right place. It just made sense. And as an administrator of a system, you need that. You don't want to have to go, oh, where's this button? Where's that button? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? You don't want to be hopping between multiple consoles. And I actually got a few of my old teammates involved in Access in very early days. And I'm like, try this for me. Go in and play with it, and then feedback on if you like the product and if you would buy it. And many of them, in fact, all of them were like, we would buy it. And that was enough for me. Okay, fine. If I like it, but I've just confirmed that any admins are going to find this very easy, straightforward, and things are just where they should be. So
brilliant. Thank you. Dan, before we go into the demo, let's talk about use cases, can we? So where are you seeing the biggest wins?
Oh, man. So I think it starts with what do customers want, and then we'll talk about like what the use cases are that helps them drive. So when I joined, I remember seeing a quote from Alex Stamos, the former CISO of Facebook, and he wrote, he's now at Stanford, "My favorite product's Duo. It's simple and it works." And it's just like, whoa, Duo is your favorite security product? All these advanced bells and whistles and stuff, and all you want is MFA? And I was like, what does that mean? Why is it that the CISO loves that so much? And how can that reflect in what we do as well? So I think when we work with customers, first and foremost, they look for simplicity, and they look for our support and how we work with them. And those two things, honestly, as much as everything else is cool, far and away are the reasons that they pick us first. I think from there, we can do more things and, connect all the apps that get left behind by a lot of our competitors and stuff. But surprising how often those two are the top two reasons. And then from there, I think it's from a use case perspective, at the end of the day, they're looking to do all the things that other businesses are looking for, right? Improve productivity. So it's, can we connect users to what they need to do their job? So remote connectivity, branch office connectivity, can we do those easier? And can we do those for less cost, right? They care about cost second most in businesses. So can we reduce operational, complexity like we talked about? Can they reduce the time to provision? So if we're going to connect a new partner, maybe they need to come in, like it's kayak.com, one of our customers, and they need to come in and bring in a new partner that's going to co-develop an application and it's complex. Are we going to go out and put our lower environments on the internet? Or can we quickly throw them on our Okta instance and then they can get access to what they need to do their job so that our business keeps moving forward? And then the last piece is risk. As much as I want to say as a company with security in the name that, security is everything, at the end of the day, it's really number 3 in the enterprise. Risks always comes last. But if we can get a dual win where we're getting improved user experience and reduced cost on one end, what the business cares about on the financial side, as well as reducing risks, so reducing the attack surface. Are we hanging out our most sensitive servers, network vulnerabilities on the internet? Are we letting users go to things they shouldn't? Are we going to let them traverse or send our data from inside the network to outside of our network onto the internet? How do we govern all those things and reduce that attack surface and keep better control and visibility over what it is that they're trying to do while they're doing their job? If we can get those 2 wins at the same time, reduce risk and improve productivity, that's the win-win that's so rare as a cybersecurity company that has really just made all of our jobs easier. Now customers are just telling us what they want. We're trying to make it green instead of blue or whatever, right? And those, I think, are the fundamentals of what Zero Trust always offered. But when I talked to John Kindervag about it in early 2012 at a dinner in Seattle, it was like, okay, that sounds great, but how are you going to do that? And at the time I was at McAfee, and it was like, well, our best strategy today is bringing all the users on the network and then using all sorts of inspection, IPS, web gateways, endpoint security, et cetera, SIM. And we're going to analyze all that traffic, and then we're going to let them go to the internet, or we're going to filter that traffic. But it was all about getting them on the network. Well, the idea of Zero Trust is really getting all the users off the network and really keeping that network for servers and workloads and applications and so on. And I think that barrier to entry to Zero Trust was so long. That's why I didn't, join anywhere from 2012 when I heard that to 2019 when I joined. Everything was pretty clunky in the meantime with what big vendors were doing. And the use case at the end of the day ends up being that hey, wait, we can actually improve both, and that's pretty special.
And you 2 guys want to add anything to that before I get Dan to show us the demo?
No, but now you understand why we joined.
I do. Yeah, 100%.
Despite how hard it has been, and being at a startup is really hard, and these guys have been phenomenal. And a big part of why I recruited them, because you alluded to the recruitment, is that they're more credible than I am as a legacy vendor guy, right? Like, I want people that have been on the other side of the fence, that understand the day-to-day, that have been in the weeds and in the trenches. Those guys, have worked through that. They understand the complexities of managing IT and security at a large enterprise. And, what John and Jay brought to the table for us was the credibility and the understanding of that did 2 things. One, it helped customers on their journey when they could come in and evangelize and understand the pain that they're in, right? We have to be understanding first. If we want to be really good at business, we have to be understanding first and knowledgeable second. But then the other thing they did is they helped us. We had 2 guys on the inside that could help us make sure we were developing a product in the right way that would be more effective for customers. That was the cheat code.
And I love the way, Jay, that you've got the admins involved in that aspect of it as well. Not just the shiny bells and whistles part that you're selling, the hands-on functionality of it. You're asking questions, getting people to test it. And I think that speaks volumes as well. And I don't think, Dan, you could ask for 2 better advocates. I really don't. I take my hat off to both of them, how passionate they are about it. So do you want to get your screen up and we'll have a quick demo?
Sure. Yeah, let's jump in. And obviously these guys overhyped it, so I hope I can live up to what they talked about. But let me know if you're able to see the screen.
Yeah, got it.
Cool. And I have a theory when it comes to demos, and that's start with dessert. But yeah, any other comments or questions before I get going?
Not from me, you 2 guys?
Nope. Go for it.
All good.
All right. So rather than jump right into configurations and all the low-level stuff that is not necessarily that interesting and will make you spend a lot of time on your phone here, let's jump into the user experience, because that's at the end of the day why we do this. So I'm actually running this right now. You can see Mike Secchi down in Southern California, Brad White, Cody's out of Austin. These are actually our internal employees doing their jobs. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on the agent and do something you would not see another vendor do in this space, which is I'm going to jump into an internal application that would normally have to wait for my VPN to start up. So that would have taken a minute, and I was able to do it in about a second there. I can do a quick download of this payroll template, start interacting with that. And my agent's doing 2 things right now. One, it's allowing me access into the network. You can see accessinternal.com. That's behind a firewall. And 2, it's checking my device. It's making sure, do I have CrowdStrike installed and on the latest version? Do I have encryption on the device? And that's going to allow me to do that download by policy. So, what does a typical user do? Maybe they jump over to CNN.com or Amazon.com or whatever. Maybe they want to go do some gambling during the middle of the day, and we don't want to allow that. So we can block that if it's not allowed. They're going to go out to things like Dropbox, both for corporate and personal use. And this is where this gets interesting. We have to understand the context of that and say, hey, this is a personal Dropbox. They shouldn't be uploading that same payroll template that just came out of the network to that Dropbox, and we should block that. They may try and go to a website that has a malicious payload in there, and I'm going to go ahead and download a malicious zip file here, and that's going to get blocked. And then in some cases, when we mentioned third parties where we really got started, there's a ton of risk of potentially having data leave the network to a third-party device, and or that third party getting hit by ransomware and then that connecting into the network. So we went ahead and turned off the agent there just to prove it. I'm going to go ahead back to PokerStars here, and you'll see I'm now able to get to PokerStars, right? The agent's not running anymore. But I can still cruise around here on this payroll website on this SharePoint. But we have a policy that says, again, if CrowdStrike's not installed and disk isn't encrypted, don't let that data onto that user's device. When we said frictionless, and the team mentioned that, that's really what we're going for. When we talked about switching between the iPad and the iPhone, it doesn't matter if the agent's running or not. This user should feel like they're able to interact with that data in a frictionless way in those websites and applications. In real time, everything that we just did, of course, is traversing the Axis platform. Now, this is built on multi-cloud. So whether it's running on AWS or Azure or GCP or Oracle Cloud, or our own stack. Customers can even run it in some cases in their own data centers where they want to. It's all containerized, so it's very scalable. We're going to pick the best cloud for that user to go over. But in this case, you can see the user went in and tried to download the template when the agent was not running, and that was blocked. So we can really quickly get a sense of everything that the user did and get that really fast, hey, that's something I need to look at kind of point of view. They can always send this to another tool like a Splunk or whatever if they prefer, but we'll just show it to you in the UI for the sake of what we're doing here. You can see here that all these users are going out to the internet right now, and we can even dig deeper into everything that the users are doing at scale on the internet, all in one place. And this is a huge opportunity and advantage of the platform, and I'm going to go through this a few times for you and mention it a few times, which is that this is really one solution. We're not just one vendor selling multiple tools. This is one solution across all those contexts, which typically were disparate VPNs, web gateways that were appliances on site, and CASB solutions that were in the cloud. That was very hard to manage. It took multiple different teams to manage. I can see all of those different contexts here in one place. So let's go jump and pick on my user again here. We'll call out Dan Perelskin, and we're going to go ahead and filter on that and just see everything that happened throughout those sessions as we went into it here. Then we're just going to pivot here again, and here we can see everything that's come in and everything that was not allowed to come in as well, which is really powerful. So let's go ahead and pivot on the status and look for the different things that were blocked. And this is the type of thing that the security teams have to do, but they have to jump between different solutions, or they have to be really advanced and figure out how to correlate those things in tools like Splunk. This is no effort. You plug it in, download the agent, the user's doing their job. The admins basically have out-of-box policies. And here we can really quickly see the malicious file that was downloaded and blocked, which policy blocked it, the Dropbox events, that was what was uploaded and why it was blocked. The PokerStars was blocked as a category, and it's really easy if they need to dig in deeper to go over, see where the user came from, what the actual name of the application was, what rules were governing that, and then the actual DLP matcher names in some of these cases. So it's, coming from, again, a background like McAfee, I used to have to jump between 3-4 different tools to do this, and yet it's here in one place. Not only am I administering it in one place, I'm seeing it in one place. And it's not hard to set up. You don't need a CCIE, so you don't have to take your most advanced people off of other jobs and put them on this. It's not going to take it's a fraction of the effort of managing that Citrix farm you're used to. So here in one place, I can quickly see, Dan got blocked for Dropbox. What was it that caused that? If I need, to troubleshoot something, if I want to, manage my contractors policy, I'm just going ahead and typing in contractors here. And policies are simple. I can, really quickly pick out, for instance, the sales team, drop them in from Okta, decide what the contexts are, what devices they're coming to, and then we already have a policy here tagged to third-party apps. So if I want to add a new app that third parties should get access to, I just tag the app instead of having to manage, 100 different policies. I just have a few different tags for those different users and whatnot. So it's really two things. One, it's really easy to manage, and two, it gives you unlimited least privilege. Just because my full-time employees need access to 100 apps, if one of those apps needs to be given to a contractor, I don't have to expose those contractors to all those applications and expose those applications to that contractor that just needs access to one. The big feedback we heard in the market when we went into CASB was that it was a 4-letter word. And I'm being a little cheeky, but at the end of the day, I think there were two big complaints that we heard. One was, boy, that takes a lot of work. It's complex, it's clunky, and the second one was it nearly is unusable. Like we could use 10% of this product because most of it's too complex or creates too many issues, and I get too many help tickets. So we made it just radically simple here. We partnered with Webroot, who already has 10,000 plus SaaS applications identified. Let me do that again. We can just click in one of those SaaS applications here, pick on it, for instance, Dropbox like we did, block the uploads like we did. And then you can pick, if you want to control it to and from something like our Access Security corporate domain. It's that simple. Like I don't need, again, a 10-year security experience to be able to set up what I just set up. And that's really what we were going for here, was quick wins to do very simple things like blocking a particular application or blocking the controls to and from that application.
So do you mind jumping in with a quick question? Is that all right?
Please, yeah, go ahead.
So from an installation implementation point of view, enterprise level firm, what does it look like?
Yeah, great question. There are, obviously different pieces you could start with. If a customer wants to start with just going to the internet, all they're going to do is come in here and go to this Enrolled Agents tab and either give a link to download the agent, or they can even download the agents here and distribute them, or give their users this link so they can just download it from a website like you would, install Chrome on your computer the first time, right? It's really easy to install for a user, or you can distribute it with an MSI like an SCCM or a Tanium. You can go push that out to those devices as you need to if you manage them. So the other option would be to send the users to this portal, like I mentioned. This portal is very easy to get to. It'll just prompt the user for the credentials they're used to, like Okta. And then the user can either just get to these applications without the agent running, as you can see, or they can download the agent from right here. Boom. And then once they do, they may have access to additional things because, again, we can check for those additional security controls and so on. And you can see just in real time there, I'm able to now get to Salesforce as an example. So user install, super easy. The last part that makes this really easy to deploy is if you're going to use us for the private access side. We have a containerized VM that a customer will just run on a Linux machine, or we have an OVA if they want to run it in something like Amazon. We have an AMI, and they're going to drop this connector behind their firewall. This connector calls back to our cloud, and it really does not have a lot of intelligence, so it's very scalable. All the decisions are happening outside of the customer network in our cloud, so their ease of setup is just really simple. One outbound rule on 443 from their network to our cloud. There's no inbound attack surface like there was with a VPN or a VDI gateway. That all goes away. So they just go ahead and set this up, and it can talk to hundreds of applications, thousands of applications, whatever you have on the network. If you have 2 of them in a given location, we'll automatically load balance them. It's really just like a one-time setup and just very, very easy for the customer. So it takes 5 minutes to set up or something like that, and then you've got network connectivity, and then you can start defining what you want to give access to. The whole idea of Zero Trust is block all by default. You can actually even see here in the rule base, when a customer starts working with us, for their web traffic, it's allow all, and for their private traffic, it's block all. And then they just start adding rules that say what you're allowed to get access to. If it's a VPN replacement, they may give access to a fairly broad set of applications for a full-time user on a trusted device, right? But if it's a third party, maybe we're just going to call out that one app they need access to, and they can do that in literally 60 seconds, which is awesome.
So can I just jump in again? Now, this is Jay's fault. So before you came on the call earlier, Dan, Jaye said, if you get any curveball questions come in, Dan's amazing at dealing with these.
Oh,
So,
no.
well, they're not curveballs, but I've got a couple of decent questions in the chat, so I'm going to ask you, Dan, if that's okay.
Sure.
First one's
Please.
from Alana Boyajian. She says, I envision some teams in large IT orgs won't want to relinquish control of policies they own to a centralized tool that security owns. Do you see this kind of people friction as this is deployed?
There can be during the project management side of things. However, we've done a pretty darn good job here of making this role-based. So when it comes to actually setting up the administrators, we have a really robust role-based model. As you can see, this is pretty unusual to see, having been in security for a long time. So you could give network teams access to the network side of it. You could give identity access management side access to the IDP side of it. Help desk, we've really defined all those roles that people might want, and we can even get more granular than this, but this is the out-of-box model here. And because of that, people don't feel like they're giving up the control. We're just giving them a simpler version of the same control they have, right?
Yeah.
Now
It sounds like you've listened to your customers there, Dan.
We try our best. At the end of the day, there's always the one-offs that we have to be careful about, but we think if it's something that's going to help the rest of the customer base, that being 2 ears, one mouth is really the way to be as a vendor.
Yeah, and there's the response. Just I'll get rid of your face for a moment, but there we go. Thanks, Alana. And the next one, where are we? What is the optimal size for an organization who deploy this, or is there an optimal size?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question. We really have customers that are anywhere down from a small grocery chain in California called Cardenas Markets that has one IT person that manages the solution, up to the largest entities in the world, NVIDIA, Procter & Gamble, and many others that use us at scale with hundreds of thousands of employees and third parties. So I think most of those really small companies maybe have a very limited private access use case, but really love the internet access side as they move to SaaS more quickly. And then those legacy companies that have massive technical debt, IBM mainframe, AS400s, and so on, voice over IP in their call center. We've developed a solution that actually works for a full VPN replacement because they have server initiated flows. The user doesn't make every request, and we can support those use cases as well. So it is one of those unique products, kind of like Duo maybe, that is really applicable for both a small company and a really big one.
I mean, I can immediately see the large, as you said, the legacy use cases. And as a former previous small business owner who had, I think, between 60 and 70 staff at the peak, all working remotely. This is about 6 or 7 years ago, with no security in mind at all. With what I've learned the last few years and then seeing this demo today, I just thought, my God, I could have done with this a few years back. It would have saved me so many headaches.
That's a great call out. And I think in those large enterprises, what some of the CISOs are telling us is there's two things that are going on. One, they're trying to adopt zero trust in a very legacy network that is so complex. We cannot add any more complexity to it, right? It's already bad enough as it is. So we need to be simple for those large complex companies, because if we were to recreate their network outside in our cloud, that would be a problem. So we try and be more of a transparent overlay, which makes it very simple. The second one is that they're feeling, either these big companies or the small companies, as these applications go out to the internet, as they become SaaS, that they're losing. Maybe that's zero trust by definition because they're not on the network, but they're losing the visibility and control that they had when it was on the network. So we need to be a transitional technology that allows for more quick cloud adoption, while also being able to upconvert some of those legacy investments and not leave those behind over the next, who knows how long it's going to be. It could be 1 decade, it could be 2 for all we know. So we need to kind of play both, advanced as well as legacy.
Absolutely.
I think it's worth pointing out. Sorry to jump in on you, Simon. Well, I'm not sorry, really, but
I'll just mute you next time.
Large manufacturing company I worked for.
That's what I do.
Great minds, John.
So
sorry, Jay.
I worked for a large manufacturing company before. Obviously, a lot of legacy equipment. As Dan highlighted, a lot of those things mean you have to retain your old legacy VPN. Server initiated flows. Our previous supplier couldn't deal with that. A lot of AS400 and legacy stuff, they couldn't deal with that either. So as I said kind of at the start of this call, when I reached out to Mr. Hines about product changes, I asked those questions. I'm like, I've still got my VPN because of this legacy stuff. And he was like, we've got an answer for that. And I'm like, we've got third parties we want to give access to. It's a bit flaky what we've got right now. It's browser based. It's not kind of, you can't use the initial, like the PuTTY clients and stuff like that. You had to go through the browser and it was really unreliable. And he's like, we can do that as well. So to be honest, a lot of the stuff that Dan's just said on the demo are the questions that I asked when I was looking at replacing the previous tool. And he showed me a very similar demo and he's like, we can do this with third parties. And I'm like, you're either really, really good at moving around this screen, which he is, to be fair, but it's also,
he is. Yeah.
It's just so in the right place. There's no other way. It makes
intuitive
sense.
Is that the word?
Yeah. And when you give it to when I gave it to my admin guys, they were like, it just makes sense. We don't need to jump around. And a lot of the competitors of ours have got 11 screens or 10 screens to do exactly what Dan's just done in one. And they
back to the simplicity. It's the simplicity word, isn't it?
Yeah,
which is something you don't see or hear much of in the security industry because everyone tries to overcomplicate everything to sell stuff. That's a bit cynical.
I'm sorry I jumped in your demo, Dan. I apologize.
No, it's great.
Can I just can I ask you one question? So my background is finance. So wearing my finance hat, if I'm sitting on the board as a CFO, is it a fixed cost? Is it easy to measure? Am I going to know what I'm paying for it? It definitely sounds like it's scalable if you've got a mom and pop store using it and also large enterprises. But from a convincing the board point of view on finance, how easily is it? How is it priced, I suppose, is the question I'm trying to ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, per user, which makes it amazingly simple, right? I think even at McAfee, people liked the per endpoint, but man, today, how many new devices do people have on a weekly basis? It's totally unpredictable. So I think the per user was the right way forward for the sort of the subscription era, which we're a part of now. Yep.
Yeah, and even the go-to-market there is very simple. I mean, there's 3 SKUs. We're not, hey, you need to have CASB. Oh, that's another SKU. You need to have DLP. It's another SKU. Experience, another SKU. It's basically 3 SKUs. Again, keeping it simple, not only for the person on the front line managing the tool, but also, the IT leader as well. So they can expect to know what their costs are going to be. And the other piece is that as we innovate on the product, or Access innovates on the product, those releases go out really rapidly. It's not like you're buying a box, VPN concentrator where you're stuck with what you have for 3 to 5 years until you depreciate it. And the upgrades are very minimal. These are like, Dan, it's amazing how much has come out in just the last 6 months in terms of innovations on the network side, NAS, CASB, DLP, experience. Every week there's a new release. We're using agile methodologies to increase the value of this product. So what you buy today, it's going to be even better in 6 months, even better than that in 12 to 36 months. That, from me in my previous role, was something from a network perspective I didn't really get. I bought a router. Great. I got a router. I ran it for 5 years. I bought a new router. It just had a better engine in it. That's all it did.
However, you did have to install new firmware, right? You needed to patch it and install new firmware like every 2 or 3 weeks or every month.
Move him now.
That's like a beer. That's like a beer and pizza party. You got to get a bunch of people in a room, and they're just rage upgrades of boxes, and you're praying every time you reboot it that it comes back.
But you didn't get any. I mean, you didn't get any benefit. So you had to sit there. You had to do the patching. You had to do the firmware, and you got normally pretty much zero kind of enhancements. Whereas we have a solution that you get enhancements all the time without the risk of the downtime.
And obviously I can't ask you this question because the acquisition is so new and I'll be putting you all on the spot and making you feel uncomfortable. However, it sounds like there'll be lots of new things on the horizon soon and lots of new functionalities potentially coming out. So it's definitely a watch this space. Things are going to get exciting, maybe.
You know what the other thing I've just been there's 2 elements. One is the technical opportunity, right? They've got an amazing SD-WAN. And as we think about like what our biggest roadmap item was that we just hadn't tackled yet, it was server to server traffic. It was allowing in some way our platform to start to, and we've done some of it. We allow, for instance, for HackerOne, a SaaS app, to be able to talk back to a Jira server on-prem and stuff. But the bi-directional stuff that SD-WANs do, it's, there's just, You can't replace that yet. So we were going to have to build a lot of that ourselves. So we have an amazing quick opportunity. We've already been working with Silver Peak as the leader in the space on integration. So that's mostly there already, which is awesome. So Silver Peak customer gets to add in Access, and Access customer gets to add in Silver Peak. And that's awesome. Aruba obviously does a lot more, of course. But the other piece is the channels to market, which is, we were, again, 116. We gone from 16 to 116 in 3 years. Now way more customers have ways to buy us, whether it's through their contracts with HPE, the channel partners that they have it's a much more massive ecosystem. Having again come from McAfee as a part of Intel, that channel and that whole network of inroads, not only for us to be able to sell, but for customers to be able to buy without friction, with all the contract work we do. When we go work with a customer, we spend the first 90 days getting to know each other, the next 90 days proving that it works together, and then the next 90 days doing contracts. To be able to remove that last 90 days, you're talking about a much better experience for customers just by being a part of a bigger company. So that's pretty special also, which a lot of people just kind of forget about that part and think about the tech, but it is really important both to us and to our customers.
Well, I hope all of your targets go up highly, considering
we'll have to negotiate that. That's unspoken. To be determined.
Jay, have you got anything you want to add? We've got 2 or 3 minutes left.
No, but we will obviously drop some notes in the chat and put it on your YouTube channel so people know where to go. We do. You can reach out to me or John if you want to ask us kind of stuff in private. We'll be like as unbiased as we can be, which is pretty unbiased. But yeah, I mean, for me, the product still excites me. And I've been driving this Lotus Elise for 23 years, and every time I open the garage, it makes me smile. You could have seen me smiling when Dan was doing his demo, because every time he does it, I still think this product's incredible. And to remember the fact that I'm part of it is great.
It was a very, very powerful demo. Even for a non-techie like myself, I can immediately see the value for that. And especially as a former business owner, it was something that's been desperately missing. And the biggest thing for me out of this is the word simplicity, which I love, having a name like Simon. John, any comments?
No, I'm really excited. Keep an eye on the space, the next few months, a lot of announcements, a lot of new stuff. Like I said, the product grows rapidly now with, backed by the power of HP, Aruba, that vision there of bringing SASE together in a single platform. That's what excites me. So as I've told Jay, I can't wait for that second stage of this rocket ship to ignite. I'm ready to go.
Excellent. And Dan, before I do this, am I right to drop your LinkedIn profile in the chat in case anyone wants to connect?
Yeah,
You're going to sound really rude if you say no now, aren't you?
No. Big fan of LinkedIn. I've been big on that since like 2008. I got a lot of connections on there, so I'm not shy. Look, we're super excited about where we are. We're excited for our current customers and for future opportunities to meet you all and see how we might be able to bring some value. So just don't be shy. Let us know how we can be a resource. Yeah, thanks so much, Simon.
No, my pleasure. And I hope to see all of you next month at RSA. I take it you'll all be there.
Yeah, 100%.
You bet.
That's the plan.
All right.
We managed to get all the way through this call and you didn't ask me about pizza, so that's a result.
I thought I'd leave you alone, really. Plus, you've got your very important colleague on the call. I didn't want to drag the tone down like we do normally.
No, Dan knows me as
well as
anybody else, right?
Of course, I forgot. Yeah. So, Dan, the question: do you like pineapple on your pizza?
I haven't had one for a while, and it's a good reminder. I do not mind a Hawaiian pizza. I do. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, Jay. I know that's probably blasphemy in your neck of the woods.
No, I mean,
I'm from California, Jay. Come on.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Every time we speak to Americans about pineapple on pizza, they're like, yeah, that's good. If you speak to an Italian, they're going to probably punch you. Yeah. But no, Simon, any more questions in the chat?
No, I think we've covered them all off. Let me just have a quick look. No, just wonderful. Thank you from Alana. I think she found the demo as interesting as I did. But no, look, guys, thanks ever so much for your time. Everyone in the chat, again, thanks ever so much for jumping in. Sorry we didn't have it on the screen today. It would have made the demo very difficult. But please do reach out to Jay, Dan, or John if you want to find out any more. And I'll see you all back in the studio tomorrow. See you all soon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Simon.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.